I'm going to try and repair this thing. This is an Agilent E5810A, which is a LAN to GPIB adapter. So you put a GPIB network on here, and you have a LAN or serial connection, and it allows you to have older gear on a newer LAN network. Very handy device. Now this one is actually broken. You can see it's had an impact on the front here, it's a bit of a ding, and you can see the display is also damaged. It's faulty. So we're going to pull this thing apart and we'll see if we can repair it. Actually, I should demonstrate what it does first, shouldn't I? Power cord is plugged in. Let's power it up, see if it goes bang. It has a universal power supply. Backlighting looks like it's working. Yes, it is. So the backlight is lit up. There is something going on display. I'm going to see some contrast changes here. It does take a while to boot up, but as the display is damaged, I think from the pictures on eBay where I purchased this, you could see some information over here on this part of the display. So it wasn't completely fried, but that may be different now because the crystal's probably all leaked out. Can't see anything yet. Indicators are showing up as fault. That's not unsurprising because there's no network connected. In fact, all the lights are still on, which is like a boot up sequence, which is a little bit more interesting. Let's do a reset. All still on. This is interesting. Might be worse than I thought. Nothing changing. Okay. So maybe it's also got power supply problems as well. Could be even more interesting than I thought. So let's pull the two bumpers off. And it does have damage on the back here. So the big ding on the back at some point. I have to straighten all that out. But let's get it open up anyway. Torx driver. Let's get one. Don't you have to go and look at the pictures to see if I notice that corner being dented or not in the pictures. If I don't notice that in the photos, I have to go back and check it. Could have been after the fact. There we go. Right, so that'll just need straightening up. It's not a big deal. I can get in there and panel beat that. Not worry about that at all. And it is actually really clean. There's almost no dust. In contrast to the other unit, where that was a mess, this one must be much newer. Details on the bottom. There's a serial number, but if that has a date code embedded in it, I'm not sure. MYB Malaysia, because this is made Malaysia. So 5237, I don't know, it's not exactly 1952, is it? So that's not with that. Date codes on devices, let's see if there's anything in here. There's not a lot. It's a minimal power supply. Got a minimal sticker on there. So it's a nice quality power supply. I think this supply is actually different to the one that was in the other unit. There is a display, which I'm looking at replacing. So it's got a standard connector there. So what I'd actually do is get the display I've got sitting over here and plug it in and see if it works. But I think it's stuck in a boot up system. I don't think it's actually quite working right. Maybe something's come loose during transit. It's possible, but everything looks like it's plugged in properly, but there is a board-to-board interconnect here as well. So we'll have a play with that. Power supply says 5 volts, common, and 3.3 volts. So we could check those power supplies. We could do that. Let's see what we're getting. We'll do that first. So I was just looking at this section back here, and that power supply socket here, the IEC connector, on the other unit I've got, that is actually attached to the board of the power supply. This one has got wires on it instead. So this is a separate connection. So yes, this power supply is different to the other unit I've got. So it's obviously a later revision, which in this case has been quite good, because otherwise it would have potentially damaged the power supply. Because as you can see there, the casing's bent upwards, so I need to straighten that back out again before I put it back together as well. That's not a big deal. Okay, let's check this power supplies out first. I've got it set to DC volts. I'm going to shove the probes in and see what we get when I power it up. So this should be the 5 volt terminal. So it did jump around a little bit when it first started. That was interesting. Oops, bad connection. So it's 5.07 and it's looking fairly stable there. And it's a 3.3 volt, which is doing 3.43 or 3.44. So maybe a little bit on the high side, but that looks stable at least. AC, nothing there. AC. So I've got a little bit of AC ripple on that one, at 5 millivolts at least. Probably worse than that when you look at the scope. So a little bit of noise in the power supply. It's not the ideal way of testing for noise, but scope does a better job. That's a good indication. So let's pull the display out. This one has got to loosen because the bracket on here is actually just a slotted bracket, so I don't have to undo it all the way and just loosen it. And this one here we've got to take out. Don't think I can move it all the way sideways to get it out. No. So take that screw there out. When I pulled apart the other one, the construction's basically the same. I had all the balls out because it's so dusty and dirty, I had to strip it completely to clean it out. So I didn't have as much stuff in the way. So let's try and pop this connector off here. It's got a latch under there. Yes, it does. There we go. There's the latch. Now I've got this thing wedged in place, haven't I? Right. So there's the display module. Okay, so as you can see, definitely fried. So I'm hoping the new display will actually fit and everything. This is the display I've got laying around. I didn't buy it for this, it just happens to be what should be the right side. Should be. We'll find out in a minute. Might find it's completely different. This one has got a serial interface built into the back of it. This is not the right type. I need a different one. So I found myself an alternative display. This is from a SparkFun kit, which actually allows you to do a serial conversion. This is like a standard parallel display which has a serial conversion kit which you bolt onto the back of it and wire up, which can use serial communication instead of parallel. But I need parallel communication in this case. Now I'm actually sure I do have some displays like this around somewhere. Do you think I can find them in my box? No. So I know I've had them. I probably do have them, but this will do. I'll just chuck a header on this and we'll put this in place. Now the thing with this is that this has got this locking header in there, which is a little bit different to what I've currently got. So let's try and pull this out. There we go. So it's got this locking header assembly on here, so I won't be able to transfer that over. I'm just going to use a standard header, which means you'll just push on the pins and relying on the pin friction, which means I'm putting some tape or something else on there to hold this in place, doesn't fall off. But hopefully this will actually work. So I'm going to put headers on this first before I go too far with it. The mountings look about right, they look like the hole centers look about right and that sort of stuff, so it's like a standard format for displays. So I'll put a header on this first, we'll plug it in and see if it looks any different. It may not do because it looks like it is not booting up at the moment as well, so I think there's something else going on too, but we'll do that bit first. So let's fit the headers to this thing and then we can look at trying it out, see if it's going to work or not. We shall attach this. Let's get one pin soldered. I'll check the alignment, make sure it looks in straight. No. Showing it up. Yeah, that's pretty straight now. Be careful not to get liquid up into the display. Right, that'll do. Plug that back into where the header went. Which one's which? And it goes that way around. Yeah, that'll work. Right, let's power it up so it happens. So it looks like exactly the same as it was with the other display, with the top row is indicated with the backlight on, obviously, and all these indicators are on. Yep. So that looks like exactly the same, but now with a decent display. Right, so we've got something else going on too. Right, let's get this apart. Hopefully all the holes are the same sizes and all line up. Right, that's that mounted on. I confused myself there for a second when I actually which way around the bracket went, but it only can go one way. It's a bit hard to mess it up. Just don't get this on backwards, that'd be bad. So we'll put that back on in the correct way. Actually I'll take this back off here so I can get the thing in there. Let's do that first. The one side slides under the screw that's there. got the washer on it, which I need to kind of position correctly. The fact it's not booting up properly is a interesting effect. What's going on? Let's get the other screw in. Great, it's not magnetic. This is going to be fun. So what I'm going to do, I did kind of get the thing half in there. I thought actually I should probably try and get that dent at the front of the panel. So I'm going to take the front panel off. Looks like it's just 4 screws and I should be able to just fold it down, remove it. There you go, that's the front panel. So it's got a dent right here, so it's going to smack that out whilst we've got the thing accessible. I need to find something to do this. Oh look, it's got a date on there. 16th of August 2012. There we go, that's when it's made. So let's pull this board here out and just have a check over it, because we've got that boot up issue which is a bit strange. So let's just pull this out and see if there's anything we can see here before we get too involved with refitting everything. This does have a board-to-board interconnect, there we go. And there's a board, which is basically just an interconnection board. This is just like probably a 595 or something, is it? CT14? Don't know. Some kind of drive anyway. There's a crystal over here. 33 megahertz crystal, which is interesting. What did it be over here? Would have thought it'd be on the main board. So the main board's got its own sub-power supplies stuff as well on here. It's got some filtering for Ethernet and that sort of stuff. Should we pull that board out? I think it will, eh? We'll pull that board out as well. Have a look at this one. Got to take this socket out in order to get to the screw that holds that board in that corner there, because otherwise you can't get to it. Right, let's get these out using a, what size is this? 7mm nut driver. Don't need the washers. Now we can get to the screw that's down there. I think this has been at least in a fairly clean environment. It's pretty clean. There's very little dust inside it. It says 4th of July 2012. So this bottom casing was made a month before the front panel. There we go. Here's the brain of it. So there's not much dust in there. It's really like coating of dust. There's almost nothing there. So the fact it's stuck in reset is quite interesting. So it probably got some kind of power supply problem, most likely. Got a few bits over here as well. It's like a shielding plate. Most of this chips on there, so there's probably nothing really to see. Well, let's just do some quick checks on capacitors, see if there's any shorts. Right, this is just checking around. What I'm really checking for is a short, in case there's a bad cap somewhere. These are all tantalums, so you never know. Let's just check some random ceramic caps. Just in case of a problem somewhere. Oh, what's that one? No, that's right, it's just very low. Those are filters, so that's not a problem. There's another cap here. Is that a cap or is that a filter? Oh, it's 2.2 ohm resistor, big one. Just checking random ones in case I stumble across something. It generally looks like it's not a shorted power supply, at least. VR601, I'm guessing that's some kind of varistor. And did I check that one? Yes, I did. Right. So there's nothing obvious on this board. If it's stuck in reset, it could be an oscillator problem. There is an oscillator on here, and there's also the oscillator off the other board. It could also be a bad connection or something like that, and maybe a cracked solder joint. I might just get the microscope over here and we'll check that out. Just have a quick look at the solder joints on those connectors to make sure they look okay. Right, so I pulled it all apart, cleaned up connections between the interconnects of the boards, resoldered a few joints which looked a bit dodgy, couldn't really find anything wrong, tested all the capacitors, check transistors, no obvious faults. Let's power it up again and see if anything comes up. So far that looks no different. All the indicators are on and displays all like that. Something ain't happy. So what's going on there? Right, so I want to measure over here. So this is a low dropout voltage regulator over here. So I'm just going to confirm that this is actually working. So I've just unplugged a couple of things so I can get to it a bit easier. So pin 2 is voltage in, pin 4 is voltage out, pin 5 is sensing. So I'm just going to check some of these pins and see what we're getting in case maybe there's an issue with this voltage regulator, or maybe there's a supply's dead, or maybe it's been shorted out after the regulator and then shutting itself down so protect itself, or maybe it's fine, but we don't know until we measure it. So let's turn the power on. Now what I just noticed from looking at it from the back here is that these indicators, the very first indicator, or the red one, and so the two indicators lit up, and then after a while the other one's lit up. So let's shove this on the ground, see if that's sufficient. So we've got 3.4 volts coming in, 2.5 volts coming out, which is expected, and there's a feedback there, 2.5 volts. So let's measure actually on the board itself here, in case there's some oddity going on. It's not the ground, middle one's the ground. So let's try and do this without shorting two pins out. Yeah, so that's fine. So there's definitely power on that board. That regulator looks fine. That is not the problem. Something else is going on. Okay, I just surprised myself. I held in the reset whilst I booted it up. We now have a working unit. It must have got knotted up somehow. So let's power it down again. And we'll try rebooting in case there's a fluke. It could still be some kind of fault with it, where maybe it's not resetting properly. That's the same as it was before. See that? So so if I push that button whilst it's booting, I can get it to boot. So that must be what I did in the listing when I actually sold this unit, is done that and made it reset. Well, I call it preset on the front here. So as it is, that isn't working. If I hold that down, let's do undo this without booting it at the same time. No, so doing it without booting doesn't do it. If I hold that in as I boot it up, at least I did it the first time, see if it does it again. Yeah, there we go. Right, interesting. So there is some kind of little glitch going on there. Could be a RAM problem, or perhaps a storage problem, because if it's going to preset like a default setup, it could be loading from a ROM differently, and then when it's not booting from that preset setup, it could be booting from probably a RAM or an EEPROM or something, and then that could be garbled, which is then making it crash. So I wonder if I can actually get it to work like this, if I have it working like this and then connect to it, maybe change some settings and store settings on it and see if that will then make it recover. Very interesting. Right, progress. But as you can see, this display's working. Yay. And it's blue. So interesting trait with this thing for getting this thing to boot up. If I power it up now, it may or may not boot. If I had the power for a while, then it probably won't. We'll give it a chance. See, there you go, it's like half reset, it's like latched up or something. I think this is the point where it's basically crashed. So, no good. We'll power it down. We'll give it a few seconds to discharge. Power it back up. See, full light went off, display went, there we go. Now it's booted. So it's like it's got a issue potentially with a reset circuitry, which is what I'm leaning towards at least, where it could be not fully resetting. It could be purely a slight timing error where maybe there's an RC network, or it could even be a supervisor IC, I don't know. It's some kind of issue there. I need to try and see if I can find a circuit diagram for this thing. I don't like my chances of finding a circuit diagram for this thing. If I can, it'd be great. If you happen to know where there's a circuit diagram, please let me know, right? E5810A. Tell me if a circuit diagram or even a service manual would be ideal, but I don't think I'll be that lucky. So someone please put me in the right direction. So at least we've got the display fixed, we've got that bit done. Done some panel bitting, got the back of the display at least flattened back out, but there's a bit of a lump just here. I might need to tap that slightly more. I've been working on the rear panel. I've started working on this, and panel bitting that, I need to do some more work on that and get it nicer, but it's coming along. And I'll get those flattened out at least, but at least it will boot up if I do a double power cycle. That's something, but it still is a little bit more work. It's not bad, but it's coming along. So I might do some more video on this later on, we'll see. Depends what I find when I dig into it more. This could be the end of this video, it may not be. If it is, then give us a thumbs up, or thumbs up, and subscribe and stuff like that. Just like it says on my bench here, like and subscribe. Do those things. Maybe I'll catch you next time. Bye. So I'm going to try and repair this thing. This is a Agilent E3... oh god, that's a great start.